welcome to the Psychohealthology Summit 2018. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm your host, Dr. Eva Detko, and my guest for this session is lovely Emily Francis. Emily is an author of 3 books and the host of a weekly show on Healthy Life Radio entitled All About Healing, which airs each Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And Emily has a BSc in exercise science and wellness and will graduate this year with a master's in education with a human performance concentration. She's a clinical and neuromuscular massage therapist and a certified yoga instructor. And a very cool fact, Emily has a gold medal in Tai Chi from 2001 US Open. And she believes in a full body proactive approach to wellness and has been studying and teaching topics on healing and wellness for 20 years now. So Emily, welcome to the Psychohealthology Summit. It's so great to have you with us. Very excited to have you here. Looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here, and hello, everybody. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure, and I know that what you have to contribute is super interesting, and people will undoubtedly find it so, because not many people talk about the connection between the muscles and the emotions, so this is a very cool subject. But before we go into that, I actually wanted to ask you, what sort of brought you into this area of work? Because you're interested in wellness, but there are so many different aspects of wellness. So why have you chosen what you've chosen? What's your story?
Well, I was 23 when I graduated college, and I started teaching aerobics and yoga, kickboxing, and studying martial arts. And then at like 27, I decided to go to massage school. And I studied clinical and neuromuscular massage therapy. And while I was in school, it was such a random opportunity, but my teacher just happened to mention during school that if you treat the psoas muscle, which is your primary hip flexor, or the longus colli, which is in the front of the neck, that those are the 2 most emotional muscles in the body, and that if you treat them manually, likely you will experience an emotional release, because this is where people harbor their most vulnerable things that have happened to them. And I stayed after class that day, and I went to the teacher and I said, okay, where is the book? This is amazing. And he said, oh, there's no book. And I said, okay, well, where's the information? How do people know that? And he said, it's just been passed down through the generations of body workers as something that we know. And they sort of took it for granted. Like, well, from that day forward, I have literally been studying this in my practice, how I approach the body, asking a lot of other professionals in the field, and really realizing that where we carry our pain in our body is directly related to our emotions and what's been happening. So it got to the point where if anybody came to me for a treatment and they said, oh, I hurt here, in my mind, it was like, oh, okay, what's going on in your life? And you could pull that stuff up. And when I mean your pain messages, I don't just mean physical pain. I mean the emotional trauma, guilt, shame, fear. Those things they're not just in your mind, they are stored in your body. And I think people used to just get stuck thinking tissue memory, but really your muscles hold differently than the rest of the body. It means so much to me for people to be able to heal and to get that clue earlier on that their body, their spirit, their emotions, all of it is out of balance. And how can we tap in and listen so that we can approach our body more fully?
We're now here talking to the autoimmune community. And so many people with autoimmune conditions, of course, experience physical pain. And I'm with you there. You know, there is a connection. There's an emotional connection to all of that. So the book actually is called The Body Heals Itself, How Deeper Awareness of Your Muscles and Their Emotional Connection Can Help You Heal. So, and you then go on in the book sort of describing all of those connections. And we're making all of those connections, we're going to do that here to the different muscle groups. So are you okay to kind of just dive right in and maybe start with the back?
The back holds several different places. So we're going to start at the top first. We're going to start at the top of the shoulders. When people say my shoulders hurt, it's their traps. Okay? This top of the shoulders is carrying the weight of the world on your shoulders. And it also is your type A personality. Okay? Moms are notorious for carrying stress here because it's that mindset of if I want it to be done right, it has to be done by me. And this is where you store it. So it's that non-team player aspect of, like my husband always says, you can tell me what to do or you can tell me how to do it, but you can't tell me both. And that's true. So people that really have to have that tight control and they really don't think that people can do it as well as them, or they didn't do it right, or they criticize, that's where they carry that pain. So we know a lot about these people just by saying, I constantly have pain here. And understand, before we go into the rest of the muscles, if it's a new acute pain, that is something totally different. It's not necessarily emotional. You might have carried your purse wrong. You might have done something silly. You got to check your shoes, check how you're sitting at work, those things. You got to go through your physical checklist first. But chronic pain, you go and get a massage, you feel great. 3 days later, the pain's back. That's emotional. That is emotional. So that's where we got to look deeper. Now, behind the shoulder blades, that's betrayal. So if you ever hear about being stabbed in the back, that's where we hold it. And it's in the rhomboid muscle. So, and it's in front of the heart chakra as well. But the rhomboid muscle will lock it in and keep it under wraps, under that shoulder blade, until somebody knows better and can help you get to that emotional place. So I had a woman that was easily in her 60s, and she came to me when I worked at a spa. And she said, I've gone to everyone and nobody can get it better. It never stays. It never gets better in there. And so I said, can I do some energy work? Have you heard of Reiki? Would it be okay if I add that in? Because I did every muscle movement I knew and there was no release. And I'm sweating and I'm working, and I realized it has nothing to do with her physical body. So I put her hand behind and I started to do energy work. And I said, don't think about it, but what's going through your head right now? And she said, I can't believe it. I'm thinking about when I was in high school and my boyfriend cheated with my best friend. But I was like 15. That was like 45, 50 years ago. Who cares? And all of a sudden, it was literally audible. And you heard, and it wasn't a bone and it wasn't an adjustment. It was an energy bubble that literally burst and came out of her body. And all of that tension and all those years of storage were released. And she, it was really amazing, but she went to the group and told everybody, I did this big miracle. And all of a sudden people are lined up trying to get an emotional release. You cannot schedule an emotional release. You can't think, you know what? I have really deep-seated, rooted emotional pain in my body. I'm going to call Emily and she's going to get it out of me, because that's not how the body works. So these are really beautiful, unplanned events where the body truly releases and you cry while somebody's treating your muscles. So beautiful, because that's where new replenishing healing energy can finally fill your space. So betrayal is in that rhomboid area, the shoulder blade area. The erector muscles that hold you upright, they're your protectors. They keep you safe. They support your choices. They support your movement. They're with you. They're not really storing the trauma so much as supporting and going with you. But that low back, that sacrum, that's a whole different game. So your low back deals with fear of financial security, and fear of moving forward. So if you suffer loss of a person, of an animal, of something really significant in your life, it's more than likely going to show up in that sacrum. And if you're afraid, if you've come into that financial place where you just, where is the money going to come? I don't know where the money's going to come. That low back is going to act up. How many people have thrown their back out? Oh, great. I can't afford this right now. I have to work. But guess what? Your body says, oh, no. You're going to take a break. And the other thing about the low back is that, remember I mentioned the psoas muscle, that primary hip flexor muscle that's so emotionally charged? It originates in the spine, in the back, and it crosses over the front of the body into that hip flexor. So when you pull your low back, it's your psoas that's the problem. So if your back goes out, you actually have to treat the front. You have to treat that psoas muscle to release and allow your back to stand upright again. So understanding anatomy, and that's why there's so much anatomy in this book, even for my lay person, because understanding that push-pull, that primary, secondary, is going to change how you go about I don't just need a shot of cortisone. I don't just need a muscle relaxer. I can go to a really well-trained clinical therapist and get that psoas treated so I can stand up again and get back to work. So there's your back in a nutshell.
So actually, as you were saying this is really cool. It's brilliant. As you were saying this, something's occurred to me, and I wanted to ask you this question, and I don't know whether it is or isn't. I'm just asking, does it work both ways? So in other words, we can make our psoas muscle tight when we, say runners, they always have tight hip flexors, right?
Always.
Because obviously they run.
Right.
And not many stretch sufficiently, and they sort of over the years can end up with the tightness. Can that then impact the emotions just purely because the muscle is tight? I'm just wondering whether it works both ways.
It kind of works both ways, but it's still like your primary is, if you're an athlete and you're always exercising and you're not stretching properly to put it back into its real supple range of motion, you're going to suffer injury eventually in that area. But it's going to be more from a physical. It's not a place of trauma. So the muscle memory will store that physical trauma or overuse, but it's not going to release in the emotional aspect. We're just going to physically release that muscle. And that's one of the things, that's why I preface at the front of the book that you have to do your due diligence in going down the list of physical, because sometimes it really just is physical. Sometimes it really is just overuse. That doesn't mean that it doesn't stress out your emotional part. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to hurt like the holy moly when somebody gets in there and finally releases that area. We guard it all the time. And interesting, even more so, this is so strange to me, but even more so than athletes, who I find have the worst psoas are people like dentists, people that have to sit in that stool in a really awkward position over somebody's mouth all day is so locked up. Or people that drive all day, that are stuck with their knees up so that psoas is always on. Those are the people that really experience the physical. But emotionally, I believe that the psoas more and the whole reproductive area tends to hold on to more trauma that has gone on either through potential sexual abuse or ideas of it. Having things happen to you without your consent stays very deep emotional roots in that part of your body. And I'm going to give you an example. I had a woman who had stage 1 ovarian cancer, and it started because there was a person in her life that later in life got sober and made amends, and then admitted to her, I'm so sorry, I used to touch you when you were a baby or whatever it was, and she got ovarian cancer. Now, people can say there's no connection. I call BS. So then she went to the oncologist, and the oncologist said, okay, there is one kind of chemo that can treat you, and then you'll be fine. Well, her body rejected it, would not take the chemo. And so the oncologist sent her to me, and he said, there's a woman in town. I don't know what she does, but see if she can get your body to take that chemo. And so we did energy work, and we did an emotional release exactly on that area where every victim goes into that mode of, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better? She was 2. She could have done nothing. And so it was that release. She cried so hard, I literally pulled a trash can next to the table in case she needed to vomit. But it released all of those attachments that her body made to the trauma. And then she was able to take that chemo, and she's 8 years out in remission. That was her body giving herself permission to heal when someone allowed that for her, when I helped her body remember that it's not her fault. But in that area, the muscles hold on to the memory, but the energy, that's where the energy really plays in. And not every person that has a huge emotional release from the psoas suffered any sort of abuse. But there are times, and I hate to be sexist, but especially in women's lives, where they don't have that voice, or things happen and they didn't get a choice. And it doesn't mean that anyone put their hands on them, but that psoas is what carries your most vulnerable emotions of all of your body. That psoas is your secret keeper. So that's emotionally why people sometimes have infertility issues. I'm not saying that there's not a whole host of physical issues, but I do know that I worked on someone that couldn't get pregnant for 10 plus years of their marriage, got divorced, married someone else. And then we did some energy work in that area of what was hiding. And there was a lot of sadness and vulnerability and some things from early. And she worked through that herself. And she has a beautiful child. You know, there's so much hidden treasure in our muscle body and our emotional body. And when they come together with somebody that can help guide you through, your life can change. In autoimmune disease, you can get to a place of balance where your flare-ups are very rare instead of living in a place of flare-up. And that's what we want to do. And it's hard because I don't work on people with autoimmune disease because they don't enjoy being touched. And I am a body worker. So a lot of the people that have the autoimmune diseases aren't comfortable coming and getting that. But laying of hands, energy work could change things for you, along with, the dietary changes and everything else that you have to do.
Yeah, it's very interesting. First of all, beautiful case studies. They really are, and it's just great to know. I think it really helps when you sort of giving those examples. But it's true, isn't it? And people with autoimmunity, particularly people who have that sensitivity in their tissues, that's the thing, that they're going to shy away from any body work for that reason, because they already, they know they have that sensitivity and it's uncomfortable. But it could be that very thing that could open some doors for them and actually move them forward in their journeys. It's really, really interesting stuff. And so, okay, so we talked about the back, really interesting. And now, so what about, let's sort of work further down from the lower back would be the glutes or, the back muscles. So what's going on with that?
The glutes are major players. So the glutes represent aggravation and suppression. So literally, anytime somebody upsets you in your life, but you just know it's not worth talking about, you sit on it, right? And you literally sit on it. So all of those times that you kept quiet because it just wasn't worth it, they store up in the glutes. So aggravation and suppression. Now, it's interesting because when I started interviewing people for my book, I met with an acupuncturist, and he said, well, of course the glutes hold aggravation and suppression because the liver gallbladder line runs through it, and that's anger. Well, guess what? I didn't know that. So I learned my information from the muscle, and he knew his information from the fascia, the matrix of the fascia, and the meridian channels, but it lined up to be the same information. Isn't that cool? So when we work on the glutes, and I'll give you another example. I worked on a client one day. I worked on her and her husband all the time. And this particular morning, I treated the whole front side of her body first, no problems, rolled her over onto her stomach, did the feet, did the legs, got to the glutes. Oh, the glutes were like a brick wall. And she's like, what the heck? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? And she was getting so mad. And because she was getting mad, I knew I couldn't let up because I knew it was emotional. And so it was like, I'm sorry, but just bear with me for a minute or two longer. And then out of nowhere, she turns around, lifts her head up, and she goes, did I tell you that my ex-husband just died? And I said, no. And she goes, did I tell you about his ex-wife? She had the nerve to write in his obituary that he is survived by his hot new wife. And I said, oh my gosh, what made you think of that right now? What made you think of that? She goes, I don't know. It just came to me. And I thought, another case study. There it is. Aggravation and suppression. You are so mad, but you don't want to talk about it because you're married to somebody else and you'd look like a jerk if you're talking about it to your friends. But in the process of our session, you're allowed to say whatever you're really feeling because there's no judgment. And except for in interviews like this and without her name, there's no repeat. So she doesn't have anything. Nobody's going to know that she said that. But that's where those glutes were. So she's sitting on it and trying to be the good, ex-wife. And, she has a child with this person. So she doesn't want to be mean or spiteful and let her child see. But she was mad and hurt that this obituary, highlights the new wife. I mean, who wants that? And that's where that was sitting. And as soon as she talked about it, the glutes let go completely. And she was like, oh, you're being nice now? And I was like, no, I'm not. I'm using the same pressure that I was just using. It's just that now you're not so upset. And then it got to be able to leave. So I love working with the glutes because I also believe physically the glutes are your key to unlocking the low back. So if people, except for, also treating the psoas, but if people have those back issues, the glutes are where you want to go first to go ahead and open up all pathways before you get to the back. So I used to sort of skip the glutes. I mean, I would kind of go over the sheet and kind of nothing. And now it's like, oh, let me in there. This is where the big muscles are. They've got a lot to say, and I want to know what's happening with you. So now we get into that piriformis muscle, too, is where the sciatic nerve runs under. And then that connects to the IT band down that leg. So a lot of aggravation and suppression. A lot of suppression is the real part for the piriformis because you do feel so limited. So doing those stretches like the figure 4 stretch or crossing in your chair and leaning forward or the pigeon stretch in yoga to open up that whole piriformis area is where you want to be. And then I'm a big fan of foam rolling for the glutes. And it's amazing because when you do foam roll on that muscles, you still elicit a little bit of that aggravation. It's like almost immediately you get sweaty. So if I'm working on somebody on the table, the glutes are where people break a sweat.
How going to just ask you exactly that. Can people do some of this work? Because obviously not everybody's got access to you. Can they do some of this work themselves by using the different things like the foam roller? That's a really good one, the foam roller. I love that. And it really gets right in, doesn't it? If you use it.
And I put that in every chapter. Every chapter of my book with every muscle breakdown has an at-home exercise. So the glutes have that foam roller, meditation, visualization, and a stretch. So for anybody that can't just come and there's not a lot of trained therapists that go clinical and emotional, spiritual energy at the same time too. So it's hard to find someone that's sort of got the circle, for treatment. So in this book, The Body Heals Itself, you can home exercises. And I've had a few people write to me saying, oh my gosh, I'm crying so hard. I did your meditation. I didn't know this was such an issue for me. But it's, when you're home and in the privacy of your own home, it's wonderful to release because nobody's judging you. You don't have to, there's no mask, so you can do it at home and really release a lot of those muscles and pain storage places.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Because obviously the safety aspect is so important when it comes to letting those things out, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
You do not treat your own psoas. You do not treat your own psoas, ever. You can put some hands over and energy and love it and talk to it and affirm things, but you're not trying to dig in there. No digging, because you can perforate your colon. The colon is right there. You have to get under the colon to get to that muscle. So you don't want to be playing. And I talk about that in the book. I really don't leave you empty-handed with this book. I try to give you all my information and how you can help yourself at home. But don't mess with the psoas, except for stretching or hands-on, just a light palm flat onto the area and give yourself love, affirmations, permission to heal, but no digging. Good safety point there. Just a reminder that the psoas is part of the hip flexor muscle, so it attaches onto the back, but it goes across the front. So that's the one, right? Hence the proximity, hence the proximity to the colon. So great. What about the legs then? Tell us more about the legs. Well, the legs are kind of different. The front of the legs are different than the back of the legs. So the hamstrings, to me, even though the hamstrings garner a lot of issues, they, to me, are very stoic emotionally. They're just sort of those houses that have those lions outside to keep the negative energy away? That's sort of your hamstrings. They're sort of your protectors. They stay with you. They push you forward to do all of your movement, but they're not going to give a lot of information. Your quads, however, are a little bit more vulnerable, especially because like your rectus femoris, that main quad muscle, it's the only one that crosses two bones. So it starts at the hip bone, is right there near the psoas. So it's right in that little player's game. And then also in the front, you have those, they call it navel. It's a little triangle on the inner thigh, but it's your nerves, arteries, veins, and ligaments, things like that. So you want to be real cautious. So there's a lot of vulnerability in the front. But the quads, they go with you. They support your dreams, and it takes you to the knees. So if the hips are your gatherers of information, so when you start to make a decision to change your life or to move forward, the legs are what's going to give you away or go with you. So the hips gather all of your information, and then they sort of point to where you want to go next. The knees, if the knees are starting to have issues, that will indicate that you're feeling like you're standing in quicksand. You don't know what the next right step is. And you're feeling really torn, like you're at a fork in the road, but you don't really know which direction. Your knees will act up. The quads are part of that. So you got your hips that gather the information and take you where you want to go. The knees are deciders. They let you know how you're feeling and if you're really willing to move forward or stuck. And the quads are your muscles to take you there. So they hold both of those in their muscles too. And then the calves are your second heart. They are what pumps the blood back up into your body. So even a giant football player, you can make a grown man cry on the calves. They're always sensitive. They're your other heart. They have the two lobes. They have the muscle underneath the soleus, but the two lobes, they're always sensitive. And you push off from the calf to get to where you want to go. So everything really with the legs is about moving forward in your life, not standing still, not feeling stuck. And if you are, you're going to have some issues. The ankles deal with how you approach the sweet part of life. So if your ankles start to act up, you might not really be indulging in the sweet part of life. And a lot of times when we don't feel good, we remove ourselves from everything. when your body takes over and you're miserable, or it's uncomfortable to touch, or when you have a flare-up, you just want to stay in bed. You don't want to use your legs at all, right? And so it's learning how to be very decisive. And it's also learning how to play with your fun self and your childlike self and letting that come out even when you feel like poo-poo, even when you don't want to move, even when you want to stay in bed. Your mind can truly change the whole way that your body feels. Like if you're under hypnosis and someone touches you with their finger and they say, I'm burning you, your skin will blister. Blister. And they didn't touch you with anything but their finger. But it's the mind connection. So that whole legs is all about you're making your choices. Are you moving forward in your life? Are you allowing yourself to enjoy your life? Are you allowing yourself to move and make different decisions? Because a lot of times when we make a decision, the universe sort of conspires to test it and to test your resolve. Oh, you want to move? Oh, you want to change jobs? I'm gonna offer you a raise. And now let's see if you really still want to change. Or, oh, you're about to leave? I'm going to bring you the man of your dreams right now and you're going to fall in love. Do you still want to leave? You know, some people call it like spontaneous discovery, but it's the same thing. The universe will test your resolve, how serious you are in whatever decision that you make. And so those legs, that's where that's really where you can listen to what you're doing in your life and where you're at and if there's clarity or there's not.
I can definitely vouch for the calves being probably the worst part of the body to have any body work done on.
So sensitive.
So then we kind of went sort of down the back of the body, and then we sort of going up the front. So I suppose now it's abdominals. I suppose this is different from what you were describing before about the ovaries and the sexual organs, right? Or is it similar?
It is. It's sort of similar. Here's the hard part. The abdominals don't give a lot of muscular information because they're helping to support and protect all of your most vulnerable organs. Except for the heart and your brain, everything else is right there in that whole cavity. And think about, as a two-legged person, we stand up with our most vulnerable parts of our body out to the open. Whereas dogs and cats and other animals are on all fours, it's always not exposed. So they feel safer. So we are very exposed and very open. So the stomach muscles, they are a lot like the erector muscles in the back. They're your support. They support you. They feel things and they hold things, but not in the same way because there's so much energy in this area that to me, it's more around your solar plexus and trust in your gut and your intuitiveness and staying safe. And the muscles, they support. They support more than anything. So there's not a lot of like deep stomach stuff that we do to get an emotional release. It's never a place I would go to help you release. Now in lymphatic work, we actually go directly over the navel to open something called the cisterna-chyli, which is sort of your backdoor reserves of lymphatic Pac-Man, if you will, that sort of help things move around. But as far as like, if I were to help someone through their stomach, it would be through energy work or light touch or very specific knowledgeable work. But if they tore something in the abdominals, that's a whole different game. But emotionally, it's more the organs and things like that in that specific area. So, but then the diaphragm too is your muscle. And I have to tell you, I worked on somebody who had a collapsed diaphragm. And I'm such an empath and I'm such a hypochondriac anyway, that it was so hard to work on that because he wanted me to really kind of work on it. And it felt like this cement replacement under the ribs. And I'm trying to rub in. There's some movements you can do where you sort of go off the ribs and under and sort of open up that diaphragm. And there was nothing. There was nothing. It was like hitting a steel wall. And my anxious tendencies were like, how do you breathe? How do you breathe? Because 80% of your lung capacity is from the diaphragm. And then 10% from the sternum and 10% from the clavicle. So you're missing 80% of your possible ability to breathe. And that tripped me out. That's when I realized, like, sometimes I'm a little too sensitive to work on this sort of case for me. But it was shocking to see the diaphragm not work.
I used to actually suffer from a tight diaphragm. I mean, it was still working, but when you do that thing, when you go under the ribs to release it, oh my God, that was really,
under the ribs.
Agonizing for me. Yeah, I used to kind of, I went through a period of time in my life when I used to just had it chronically tight. So that was interesting. But I also wanted to ask you, is there any significance to the intercostal muscles and if they get super, super tight and spasming and stuff like that? Is there any significance?
They do get super tight. They do. There's nothing better than to take those fingers and rake right in between those bones. Now, they are your garters too. You don't usually see an emotional release from the intercostal muscles, but you do see a beautiful physical release from the intercostal muscles. And you can do that at home. You can just take some lotion and go across follow the direction of the ribs and just rake. Spread your fingers out around the bones and rake to help open. And then, of course, super easy breathing things where you lift the arms and lower. And then just some nice leaning to the side. You want to really open that whole intercostals because those ribs block the lungs. So if those muscles are too tight, you cannot access your breath well. So you always want to make sure that you give good stretches, open those muscles, and really allow them to let your lungs expand fully. So we don't realize same thing with like the front with the scalenes. The anterior scalene comes under the rib and connects underneath. So when you are too tight in here, it's hard to inhale because the muscle's not allowing. The diaphragm, of course, is what helps you open, but the ribs are your monster players for breath and your neck muscles. So you really want to keep all of that open. And I have a picture of the fish pose in the book. The fish stimulates our parathyroid organ. But it's really important as much and as often as you can to lift that chin, expose the neck, open your chest.
Yeah, because this has got massive implications, of course, and then you hear people. I hear people an awful lot because when you ask people to do deep breathing exercises and things like that, so many people would say, "But I've got a real difficulty, drawing a deep breath." Right, so that's got massive implications because, of course. We need to oxygenate our bodies in order to be well, right, and in order to heal. So if we're not really doing that efficiently, and if that is blocked, then of course we're impacting our healing process without a doubt.
And let me give you the easiest at home. I did not put this in my book, but it's brilliant. The easiest at home way to give yourself good breaths is to get a straw, a nice good straw, and exhale as hard as you can through that straw. Don't think about the inhale. Just focus on exhaling through that straw because the exhale is actually the most important part of deep breathing. But when you say take a deep breath, people do this real high in your shoulders and they get this huge inhale and it's very stressful and then their diaphragm's not involved at all and then stress takes over their body. So instead, you want to really focus on the exhale, but it's hard to do. So if you take that straw and you push hard through that straw, your exhale will become the main focus, and then your inhale comes naturally. And that's what you want. You want to refill those lungs from the bottom to the top, and without thinking about it, it goes diaphragm, clavicle, sternum, clavicle, without any thought. So easy. You can do that in a bathroom if you're getting stressed out. You just run to the bathroom, inhale and exhale, and do it, I say, 5 to 10 times, and that's what they call a full yogic breath, because you got 100% lung capacity in. So when you're thinking deep breathing, think exhale, don't think inhale. And that straw will open you up. So everybody that's listening, get a straw and get a cork, a wine cork, because we're going to get to this part for the jaws, which I really want to talk about those muscles. But the wine cork, you can go vertical between the top and bottom teeth, and it'll release all those muscles and the temporalis and the base of the neck. And if you're suffering from a lot of headaches, all you need is a cork, and you can get it from a wine bottle, you can get it from a restaurant, or you can pay $5 at any craft store, and they have a bag of them in a ton of different sizes and heights. So depending on how tight your jaws are, you can just get your little cork and hold it there for 3 minutes. I do it when I'm driving. I keep one in my glove box. So if I'm getting stressed out, I find that I do weird things with my chin and I lock up back there. So I stick my cork in and it immediately aligns the neck and the head and releases everything. So you just saved yourself a lot of money in body work by having your own at-home straw for your breathing, cork for your jaws.
That's fantastic tips. These are really, really great tips. So can you actually just so people are clear, how do you exactly position the cork so they're doing it properly?
I have a little lipstick tube, okay? Actually, I'll do it. Yeah, this is it. Long ways. but you put it where it's actually under both teeth. It's just that this is rounded at the top, so it's not as easy. But because it's not sideways, it's long ways. It's vertical. Two top teeth, two bottom teeth. Put it right between. And the cool thing about the cork is you can bite down without issue. It's not a hard surface. It's a cork. So it doesn't hurt so much. Because your jaws and the base of your neck, they're best friends. So if somebody has a really tight base of their neck, if they come to me, I'm going to put on gloves. I'm going to go inside your mouth and I'm going to treat those muscles. And as soon as I treat those muscles here, all this lets go. If you start having headaches in the front, it's a jaw issue. It's a clenching issue. You might need a bite guard. You might need to go see your dentist or go to a good clinical therapist who does intraoral work. Get those gloves on and then learn how to do it to yourself so you can just treat yourself or use that cork.
That's great. So basically, 3 minutes and you can do it whilst you're doing other things. So that's a great tip.
Okay.
So what's the emotional significance when we're talking about the head, face, and jaw muscles?
It's all about chewing on the bone. So if you are one of those people that has a very hard time letting things go, so let's say that somebody hurt your feelings or broke your heart. Let's say you come out of a relationship and you really cannot stop replaying it all the time. That's where that is. You are chewing on the bone. You are chewing on a bone long after that bone should have been thrown out. So the way that you process your own emotions, the way that you process situations, the way that you change it up in your head, that all lives in the jaws. The neck works with the jaw, but the neck is all about what's going on around you. So how would you see something? Because your neck. So remember that movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding? And the daughter says, oh, Mom, the dad's the head of the house. And he says no. And she says, your dad might be the head of the house, but the woman, she's the neck. And the neck can move the head any way they want. And it's true. So the neck is all about perception, reality, what's happening behind your back, what's happening in front of you. How aware are you of your outside world? And how are you processing the outside world into your body? And that goes into the jaws. So see how those work? Remember how I said these are best friends? They're best friends, but they're naughty friends. They're kind of lemmings. So if one goes off the cliff, the other one will take it with you. So if you're having a hard time and you start chewing on those jaws and then you're betrayed, it's all down the back and the neck, you're talking about they don't make each other better. They can, but they're two naughty friends that go party together and do bad things. They're bad influences. Or we come in and we help treat one by using the other. But it's all about how do you perceive your world? How do you process it? So negative energy is in the eyebrows and in the ears. So we always want to pinch those eyebrows. You start from the inside and you just pinch and pinch and pinch to get some of those negative thoughts to leave. So when you start having those bad thoughts and you start clenching that jaw, get that cork out and pinch, pinch, pinch. Get the thoughts away. Take the tops of your ears and pull, and take your bottom ears, pull. Put your thumb inside, pull out. Get clear-headed. And not just about heartbreak or things that make you sad, but if you have an autoimmune disease, you are prone to feeling like bad some days. So get this stuff open so you can make a different decision and work with your body for your best day. And just go day by day. Go very slow. Break it down.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. More great tips. Fantastic. I'm loving this. I really am. I think the only one we missed is the chest.
Oh, the chest is all about love and allowing love into your life or not letting love into your life. The chest is about opening up or retreating. So I love the doorway stretch where you hold the doors and come forward to open that chest up. But your chest houses your heart chakra and your real pericardium and the whole energy space. So it's all, what are you letting into your life? What are you repelling? So biceps bring in, triceps push out. So the arms deal with, same thing as the chest, bringing in, allowing love, pushing away, not into it. And that's where that stuff will hold. And it'll show up in your muscles. So you got to talk to both. You got to sift those chest muscles, which is gnarly, but you get your thumb underneath and sift. Get those muscles open, do the doorway stretch. Just let yourself be open to enjoying your life. Really quick, the forearm correlates to the throat. So the forearm correlates to the neck and to the throat, speaking your truth, communicating, being on the computer, overuse, things like that. Here's your stretch. If you're starting to have carpal tunnel, you put the knuckles together and the wrists at plane. If you can lower the elbows down, you're good. If they can't go below the plane, we got some issues. You got to work through the actual muscles. So you treat the muscles for overuse, but you also think about, are you speaking your truth? Are you comfortable? Are you communicating well? And then your hands, the muscles to your fingers are in your forearms. You don't have muscles in your fingers. So the hands are more about collecting energy and giving energy. They're not an emotional space. They are the emotional mat. So that pretty much gives you your whole body.
So great. So as we said, the book will give people more instruction into how to create more of their own release at home in their own safe space, which is really great. But is there anything else that we haven't said said here that you still want to add? Of course, you've got your radio show as well. So do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
So the show is called All About Healing. It's every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time. It's on healthylife.net. So it's an audio, but I also video. The last 8 minutes of every show is Emily's Energy Corner, and I put that to video and upload it to my YouTube link. So that's Emily A. Francis, and there's a YouTube, so you'll see weekly videos, and then the show is every Wednesday. But it plays, once it's played, you can download it at any time. So you can go in and listen to any of the All About Healing on healthylife.net. And I really hope that you follow me. I'm Emily A. Francis. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff. Just come see me. And I really am so thankful for letting me be a part of your beautiful summit. Thank you so much.
Oh, we are thanking you because you've shared so generously. Loads of practical content that people can really use to help themselves. And sometimes those simple things can be very, very powerful and profound and have a really big impact on us. So thank you so much for being so generous, sharing your knowledge and expertise and experience. Yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Emily. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day.